What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'm doing a NASCAR Silly Season update and a NASCAR Silly Season update roundup to basically get you guys caught up so far from the beginning of the year up to this point, up to July 13th and July 14th up to this point in the NASCAR Silly Season. There's a lot of stuff to unpack here from the beginning to the end. Let's jump into it. Let's first talk about Aric Almirola. Now, on my birthday, which is January 10th, Aric Almirola revealed that he basically would announce that he would be retiring from Stewart-Haas Racing and would not drive for Stewart-Haas Racing after the 2020 season, as he wanted to spend more time with his family. However, Aric Almirola has been pounded by the media and hound dogged by the media really over the last couple weeks about if he is considering he's in contention for the playoffs right now, is having a decent year, a much better year in 2022 to compare to 2021. He's been hounded by the media as if he is reconsidering his decision. And Aric Almirola said he's not 100% out of the possibility of him returning to Stewart-Haas Racing. Now, I think one of the big reasons why this could be the case is because of his long-term committed sponsor, Smithfield. Smithfield has been sponsoring Aric Almirola since 2012 when he started driving for Richard Petty Motorsports at a time called Richard Petty Motorsports. He started driving for them, and it's had them as a sponsor for a very, very long time. So they don't want him probably to leave because of that, and I think Smithfield could leave because of that. Aric Almirola's been having a good year as well, and I think he could be a driver that if he does return, this is one thing to watch. I still think, though, more than likely, Aric Almirola is going to retire from Stewart-Haas Racing and retire from the Cup Series, at least on a full-time basis, but I would not count the possibility of at least him doing part-time in 2023. The next team we're going to talk about is Hendrick Motorsports and also the Indianapolis 500. So, a story a lot of you probably don't remember, but back in the beginning of the year in early January, Jeff Gordon, and this was reported by Adam Stern back in early January, Jeff Gordon said that Hendrick is open to racing in other series. In fact, they're looking at potentially racing Indy 500. And this leads to a major story around a Garage 56 entry that Hendrick Motorsports is going to be running in a Le Mans 24 Hours in 2023. It's going to be a GT car that is also going to be a next-gen car. Now, drivers have not been revealed at this time, but they're looking at guys like Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Jimmy Johnson, and also Jeff Gordon to get behind the wheel of that car as well. And they are going to have other teams and people that are going to be involved in this project as well. From Toyota and Ford are also, I believe, going to be involved in this project as well after Denny Hamlin called them out on this. Now, looking at this as well, I think this is a big deal for NASCAR. Now, also jumping into another part of the story, Jeff Gordon has approved Kyle Larson to race in the Indianapolis 500 as well if he tends to do it, whether it's the Hendrick Motorsports teams or whether it is with another organization in 2023. Now, more than likely, if Kyle Larson is to run the Indy 500 2023, they're going to have to announce it at some point in the later portion of this season, because if they do it in 2023, it's going to take way too long to get it done. This will be a story long-term to watch if Kyle Larson does run the Indianapolis 500. The next team we're going to talk about is Chase Elliott. This will be the first major silly season and next major silly season announcement with someone who actually is returning to the organization, as Chase Elliott initially had a contract through 2022. However, on the day of the Daytona 500, Chase Elliott announced himself that he would sign a contract extension with Hendrick Motorsports that will go through the 2027 season and keep until he is the age of 32 years old. Why are they keeping him? Well, Chase Elliott won the 2020 NASCAR Cup Series Championship, most popular driver, brings his sponsorship like Napa and other funding from companies like Ashok and Lumar as well. And also, he is a driver that has been very successful with Hendrick Motorsports over the years and is currently a championship contender in 2022. Already has scored 3 victories so far, the only driver with 3 victories up to this point this year. That's why they're keeping him, and it'll be a long-term success for the team going forward. Now we're going to transition a few months later and talk about Noah Gragson. Now, Noah Gragson was speaking to the media after winning the NASCAR Xfinity Series after Talladega, and he says he wants to go full-time in the Cup Series in 2023. Now, Noah Gragson has been racing part-time in the Cup Series so far this year, has made 2 starts so far at Beard Motorsports. I believe he's had 1 top 20 finish with that team, and has also made a couple starts in the NASCAR Cup Series with College Racing, has had 1 or 2 top 20s up to this point as well. Noah Gragson also says that he hopes his teams are looking at his Xfinity Series stats and not his Cup Series stats. Now, teams are going to be looking at what happened to Road America a couple weeks ago, because basically, Noah Gragson got involved in something with Sage Karam, and a lot of team owners, including his own boss, Dale Jr., was not very happy with the move that Noah Gragson made right there. So I think Noah Gragson is going to probably end up Cup full-time in 2023, but I think teams will absolutely be looking at what Noah Gragson did and questioning why he decided to make those moves. The next thing we're going to talk about is William Byron. Now, William Byron would be the next driver to announce his plans for the future, as William Byron would announce he would sign an extension with Hendrick Motorsports through the 2025 season. The reason being, Liberty University has a long-term commitment with Hendrick Motorsports through 2027, and also has 2028, and also other companies have been working with William Byron as well. Plus, so far, William Byron has scored 2 victories, the first time he scored multiple victories in a season. However, since that win at Martinsville, he has only scored 1 top 10 finish and needs to really improve his stats long term if he wants to be a championship threat. But I think that's why they kept William Byron long term, because he came up to the Cup Series, got rushed up. And what they're generally hoping for is that William Byron can really improve with the Hendrick Motorsports group long term. But he will be returning to Hendrick Motorsports at least for the next 3 years. But they want to keep him pretty much for the rest of his crew. And I think they will have a good chance of doing that. The next name we're going to talk about is Ty Gibbs. Now, there have been a lot of questions early in the year about guys like Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch, which we'll get into later in this episode. But a lot of people thought Ty Gibbs was potentially going to go full-time in the Cup Series with Joe Gibbs Racing in Cup. However, it was announced basically back as early as, I think, early May and late April that Ty Gibbs would be returning to the NASCAR Xfinity Series in the number 54 car in 2023. The reason being, they want to give Ty Gibbs more Xfinity Series experience before he jumps up the Cup and for him to mature. At this point, Ty Gibbs is beginning into a lot of beef with drivers throughout the entire season, and drivers are getting frustrated with Ty Gibbs. Now, Ty Gibbs, really, since this was announced, he's been really maturing and improving. There is a chance he could at least run part-time in the Cup Series with a team and get some Cup Series experience. I think he deserves to be a Cup driver, but he will be returning. And the only other thing that could affect him is Kyle Busch potentially being a good place for him to go if he goes to the 18. But Ty Gibbs will be back in the Xfinity Series on a full-time basis in 2023. The next thing we're talking about is Project 91. Now, this really came out of left field. But Project 91 was announced in early June, and they were announced that they plan to run all the road course races in the Daytona 500 for next year. They actually are going to be running one race in 2022 with Kimi Räikkönen in behind the wheel of this car in August in the number 91 iLock LOQ car that, of course, sponsored him in Formula One as well. They're hoping to run all the road course races in the Daytona 500 in 2023, and we're looking at drivers like Jimmy Johnson, Julio Castroneves, Marcus Ericsson, and maybe also Kimi Räikkönen making a return as well. This Project 91 car is supposed to be a brand where we can get all international drivers, but there's also potentially other current U.S. drivers who could get behind the wheel of this car. Guys like Colin Herta, Joseph Newgarden, who really knows at this point. But this Project 91 car is a massive deal and a massive project and could be very successful long-term for the team. I don't think it'll be a full-time entry ever, but they will be at least looking to go part-time in 2023. The next thing we're going to talk about is Joey Logano. Now, Shell would announce before the Indianapolis 500, they would basically announce that they would announce a major extension with Shell, where they would stay with Team Penske, I believe through the 2030 season. Now, at this time, it did not confirm if Joey Logano was going to be returning to Team Penske after 2023. However, Roger Penske confirmed that he will be with the team through 2023, and they are working on a contract extension with Joey Logano to keep him in the team long term. They probably want to keep Joey Logano at least for another 5 or 6 years. I would assume probably up to around 2027, 2028 is the deal they're looking at. But especially Joey Logano already having 2 wins so far this year and having a pretty good year so far, they want to keep him long term. Plus, he's already won a championship with the team back in 2018. So they're going to keep him with the team long term, and he's not going to be leaving the team really anytime soon. The next thing we're going to talk about is Matt DiBenedetto. Now, Matt DiBenedetto was being interviewed by the media, but also by Bob Pockrass, and he was asked about if he had been potentially looking at some Cup Series opportunities for 2023. Matt DiBenedetto basically told the media that he is happy with Rackley WR and has not looked at any Cup racing and going Cup racing in 2023. I anticipated Matt DiBenedetto is going to be back with the Rackley WAR organization, considering he's had a pretty good career with that team so far. Has actually really performed in that equipment well, better than anyone else, including Josh Berry, who I really look at Josh Berry as being a really good driver. But I think he's done really solid so far this year. He's an outside playoff contender. If he wins the next race, because they've only got one race left to the playoffs for them, but if he wins next weekend at Pocono, he would make the playoffs. He's had some decent stats at Pocono in the past and could be generally a threat there to win. I think Matty D will be solid in that race, and I think he will return to the team. Now, would he get some Cup starts in 2023? That's very possible, and it absolutely could happen, but I don't anticipate that generally happening, and I anticipate he will once again return to Rackley in 2023 and stay there long term. The next thing we're going to talk about is Daniel Suárez. Now, Daniel Suárez picked up his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory at Sonoma. and basically was asked by the media and was basically out, and basically Ty Norris, who's a general manager of Trackhouse Racing, was asked about Daniel Suárez. Because at the time, we know that Daniel Suárez only had a contract with the team through 2022. Ty Norris basically confirmed after his win that Daniel Suárez is expected to return to Trackhouse Racing in 2023. Now, the reason being is because Daniel Suárez has been really successful so far this year. He's actually in the top 15 in points currently at the moment on the regular season. He's not been as good as Ross Chastain, but he's having a career year. And it would not surprise me if Daniel Suárez does get at least a win or two more this season. He's had a lot of speed and a lot of success so far this year, and they want to keep him long term because they basically brought in Trackhouse Racing because of a driver like Daniel Suárez. He's a great driver and will be with this team and will be around long term with this organization going forward, including in 2023, but I expect it to be much longer going forward. The next guy we're going to talk about is Brodie Kostecki. Now, Brodie Kostecki currently competes in the Supercar Series, and he's actually looking to come over and race in the United States. Now, he has not been out of the realm of possibility. They could race in like the Penny Series, and also could race in Indy cars and race in other things like Rally. But he's also looking to potentially race in NASCAR, whether that's the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series. I love that we're seeing more of an international presence. He also could be another candidate for the Trackhouse Racing car, but I love we're seeing a lot more of international presence in the world of NASCAR, and having a guy like Brodie Kostecki in the series would be absolutely great. He's someone to watch if it happens. He could be racing in NASCAR in 2023 and somewhere. The next guy and team we're going to talk about is Niece Motorsports. Now, Cody Efa, who's the general manager of Niece Motorsports, went on Davey Siegel's podcast, and he says that Niece Motorsports is looking to go cup racing at least on a part-time basis in 2023. And they're looking at bringing up Carson Hocevar to the Cup Series to run on a part-time basis. This absolutely shocked me, because while I think Carson Hocevar is an extremely talented driver, I'm a little surprised that they're already looking to jump up the Cup. Cody Efa basically bashed the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and he basically said that the Xfinity Series does not have enough room for them to go into, which is absolutely not the case, because I think Niece Motorsports could be extremely successful. I'm also worried if Carson Hocevar does go up the Cup, whether it's part-time or full-time. I wonder if he's going to struggle. Now, I do think right now would be the best time to make the move if you are going to make the move up to the Cup Series, but I think Carson Hocevar could have some success if he goes part-time long-term. I think at some point he will be in the Cup Series in some sort of capacity, whether that is full-time or part-time, but I'm very intrigued to see if he'll be up there part-time with the team in 2023. The next driver we're going to talk about is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, there were multiple things that were confirmed at Nashville a couple weekends ago, but the first thing was confirmed was Ricky Stenhouse Jr. A lot of people were wondering what was going on with JTG Daugherty Racing heading into 2023. Well, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. basically confirmed to the media that he has signed a multi-year contract extension with JT Daugherty Racing and plans to be with JTG Daugherty Racing for the long term and for basically the rest of his career, or basically at least the next few seasons. The reason being, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. really likes being with JTG Daugherty Racing, and I know the beginning of the year did not go really well for that team, but over the last few weeks, they have been really improving on their speed and performance, and they're sitting in the top 25 in points. Plus, I think if one team could really improve, I think it's JTG. They've got Hendrick backing as well, and they've also got the sponsorship and funding as well from Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I know he had been a candidate at some point potentially for the Suárez racing car as a potential replacement, but I think Stenhouse has been really solid and really successful so far up to this point. I know that the other teams were looking at him to pick him up, but I think it's great that he's returning to JTG Daugherty Racing. On that same day, it was revealed that Truex Jr., who basically been in a major media storm, because there had been a lot of speculation also around Truex Jr. A lot of us thought that Truex Jr. was going to retire after the 2022 season. However, Truex Jr. basically just said in a couple ways, yep, I'm going to be back with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2023. And I think he absolutely deserves to be back with Joe Gibbs Racing. While so far this year he's not won a race and hasn't been as good this year as he's been in previous years, Truex Jr. is still a very solid and a really talented and a great driver and still knows how to get it done. And at Nashville was one of the fastest cars there and has shown some pace and speed in other races and other tracks where he hasn't really shown speed in other weekends. I think MTJ returning makes a ton of sense, and it gives a driver like Ty Gibbs some time to get ready to go. And I'm also happy Truex Jr. is going to come back with the team. The reason we were all speculating is because Truex Jr. had basically been going to the media and basically saying, yeah, I'm not sure if we'll be back next year. This might be the end for me. I just don't know. But then he, like I said, confirmed at Nashville in a couple ways, and their press release is really great to see. I'm so happy that Truex Jr. is coming back to Joe Gibbs Racing, though, in 2023. The next thing we're going to talk about is Erik Jones. Now, there have also been a lot of speculation around Erik Jones as well, because Erik Jones right now only has a contract with the team for the 2022 season. But Erik Jones has basically come out and said as of recently that he is really close to getting a contract extension and a deal done with Petty GMS to return in 2023. Now, a lot of teams are looking at a driver like Erik Jones because Erik Jones has been really impressive so far in the 43 car. He is a playoff contender. If he can win a race, he actually will be in the playoffs and will have an opportunity to win because he's had some good pace and some good speed so far as well. Not to mention, he's made that 43 car look really, really competitive. Now, there's potential ride for him in 2024 that could be open to RCR, but I think he absolutely deserves to be returning to Petty GMS. Once I announce it, I think that's going to be great for the sport, and I'm really excited to see if it will be announced. I think it gets announced sometime in August, more than likely. I think that's when they're probably going to announce that he will be returning to Petty GMS Motorsports, but I think it's a solid driver and could get things done in that car. Next thing we're going to talk about is Junior Motorsports. Now, Junior Motorsports, there's been a lot of speculation over the last couple of years that Junior Motorsports has been looking to potentially jump up to the Cup Series, at least on a part-time or on a full-time basis. Over the years, they basically have said no, and there's been rumors really since around 2010. However, as of recently, the rumors, once again, have begun to spring up. And for the first time in a long time, really after the National Weekend, for the first time in a very, very long time, Dale Jr. basically said that, yeah, we really want to go Cup racing. Now, the thing that's been holding Junior Motorsports back from going full-time is the price of the charters. And according to reports as far back as April that Adam Stern reported, he reported that charters are going around for about $15 million. Now, Junior Motorsports has been looking to buy one up, but I think if they're going to get a charter, they're going to basically have to get it from a team like Spire Motorsports because we don't know if they'll be around long-term. But they want to go Cup racing, and there's potential possibility that Junior Motorsports could at least run on a part-time basis in the 2023 season, at least in a few starts and a couple one-offs. Unclear what drivers they could go with. Potentially Noah Gragson, perhaps potentially Josh Berry. I would think Josh Berry would probably be the most likely candidate to go into that ride on a part-time basis. But I think Junior Motorsports would be a great team to jump up the Cup. Many of us have been wanting them to jump up the Cup, and there's a good chance they could do it. Or maybe they'll go and basically purchase and merge with an organization and race with them in 2024. When we talk about that in the future, we'll see what happens. The next thing we're going to talk about is Ryan Truex. Now, we're skipping around a little bit because we do have two major things we'll talk about here, but let's start off with Ryan Truex. Now, Ryan Truex, after racing at Atlanta and finishing up his final race with Joe Gibbs Racing for the season, he basically says he wants to run full-time in 2023 and hopefully wants to make some more starts in the Xfinity Series this season. Now, it does help the fact that Ryan Truex is the brother of Martin Truex Jr. There's a good chance he could be with the team, and I'll be honest, he's actually had some decent stats. Not been amazing this year, but he's done pretty decent so far with this organization. I would love Ryan Truex to be in the Cup Series. Not Cup Series because there's no Cup rides available at this point, unless, of course, one of the drivers we'll talk about here in a little bit gets out of ride. But I would love to see him get an opportunity to race on a full-time basis in their Xfinity program. I think he could win. He's a good driver, and it would be very solid to have him as a potential candidate for this ride. Now let's talk about Henderson Motorsports and jump to them. Henderson Motorsports, they picked up their first win of 2022, their first win on a road course, and their second career victory as an organization in the Truck Series. And Parker Kligerman, after winning the race, he actually says that they are looking to go full-time in 2023, and are wanting that opportunity to go full-time in the 2023 season. I think they deserve to go full-time. They've been showing, they've actually done their most starts I believe they've ever done in a season. They've only done, at most, sometimes 7 to 8 races. They're doing 13 races altogether this year, and they've been very, very solid so far up to this point. Now, I would love to see Parker Kligerman in the series on a full-time basis. I think he's a really great driver and a very solid driver, and I really hope he does get that opportunity to run full-time with Henderson Motorsports because he's always deserved an opportunity to race full-time, and hopefully Chevy can back them up in getting him in. Now we're going to get into the first of the two major silly season things. We're talking about Kyle Busch. Now, Kyle Busch right now has a contract through 2022, and you think he's set for the long term, right? Well, back earlier last year, at the end of last year, right after the season ended in late November, early December, M&M's basically announced that they would not be renewing their partnership with Joe Gibbs Racing, and that meant that Kyle Busch was going to have to find some sponsorship and some funding heading into 2023. Because Kyle Busch only right now has a contract through the 2022 season. Now, Kyle Busch had initially said when this was announced that he had a contract through 2023, but now we find out a few months later that's like, no, Kyle Busch is not set for the 2023 season. Now, Kyle Busch and a lot of the teams want him to stay. Kyle Busch wants to stay with Joe Gibbs Racing, and the basically guy who runs the operations, Dave Wilson and Dave Alpern, really want Kyle Busch to stay. However, as of very recently, Kyle Busch came out, and I don't know if this is entirely true or not, and said that the deal was not close to being done with Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, Dave Alpern, like I mentioned, had said basically as of recently that he said that they want Kyle Busch to return to Joe Gibbs Racing in 2023. However, and they say his sponsorship is not lacking. However, he says the one thing that is affecting this is the fact that basically Kyle Busch does not have a lot of funding, and also the fact that sponsors, they want a major deal, and I think Kyle Busch wants and is demanding a lot of money as well. Now, if Kyle Busch does not return to Joe Gibbs Racing next year, where could he go? He could go to Suárez Racing, could go to RCR perhaps, or another team. Who really knows at this point? But I still think Kyle Busch could return to Joe Gibbs Racing next year. I still think it's more than likely he will return. However, I think it's only going to be a one-year extension, and then there could be potential. We talk about this again heading into 2024. I think this definitely is a massive, massive story to watch long-term in regards to Kyle Busch, because we still don't have a deal. We're in the middle of July. We thought by now we'd have something done, and Joe Gibbs was hoping to have something done a little bit sooner. And right now, there's still a lot of talk and conversation around Kyle Busch. And now we get into the final major thing before we get into a couple of drivers and speculation around them. Tyler Reddick. Now, Tyler Reddick is definitely one of the biggest hot shots and biggest prospects in the Cup Series currently at the moment, and just picked up his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory. Now, Rich Schultz Racing announced the week after he won the race that he would be returning to Rich Schultz Racing in 2023. It was announced during the weekend. However, he had been asked by the media about his plans for 2024. His 2024 plans have been officially revealed, and he is headed to 2311 Racing in 2024. And probably the most shocking silly season move since the Trackhouse announcement when they had acquired the operations of Chip Ganassi Racing's Cup program. Tyler Reddick's heading to 2311 and heading to Toyota. It's not been entirely confirmed at this point if 2311 Racing is going to be a 3 or 4 car team, 2 or 3 car team heading into 2024. But there is a chance it could be only a 2-car team. It all depends on what Kurt Busch does, because Kurt Busch has a contract through 2023, because Bubba Wallace and Kurt Busch, they are both confirmed through 2023. There's also a possibility that Bubba Wallace could be let go. However, I don't want to see anybody saying it, because I think Bubba Wallace is not going to be leaving the team ever, and is going to finish his career with 2311 Racing. Now, this move, if this move was absolutely being made for this year, I think this would be a very, very horrendous move, because 2311 Racing has not gotten to that point. But I think for 2024, this actually makes a lot of sense. I don't think Rich Schultz Racing is a team that is really going to improve, to be honest. I don't think they're going to gradually improve as an organization. I think Tyler Reddick has really brought the peak of that group. And I feel like similar to Kyle Larson, Chip Ganassi Racing, he's been getting the best out of his equipment. That's not saying Tyler Reddick couldn't do better, but they've been extremely inconsistent this year as well. And I think heading to a new face would be great. Now, of course, we then get speculation around Kurt Busch and Bubba Wallace. Like I said, Bubba Wallace, he's not going anywhere. And Kurt Busch is staying through 2023. Kurt Busch, though, and it potentially could be a 3-car team. However, Denny Hamlin said a few weeks ago on the Dale Jr. Dallin, he basically said that he's not planning to expand to a 3-car team. But this could be a different circumstance where they do become a 3-car team. Denny Hamlin playing 4D chess for the future. They're making a lot of major hirings and making a lot of major moves. And now they've got Tyler Reddick at 2311 Racing. This is such a massive, massive move and a massive Chad move, in my opinion. And a great move and the biggest silly season update so far of there. And now we finally get into a couple speculations. Ryan Preece. Let's talk about him, because Ryan Preece is currently the reserve driver for Suárez Racing. And a lot of people think it's 100% certain that he's going to go to the 10 car in 2024. 2023, I should say. However, we already talked about Aric Almirola's potential. He could be returning to the team in 2023. And we also talk about the fact that potentially other drivers like, John Hunter Nemechek could be a candidate for Suárez Racing as well, but also could be a candidate for Sam Hunt Racing. You've also got other drivers like Riley Herbst that are looking at potentially getting into the car as well. Riley Herbst currently drives full-time for Suárez Racing's NASCAR Xfinity Series program, and he's definitely being looked at as a potential candidate and a driver who could get behind the wheel of one of those cars as well. These silly season stories are going to be fun going forward to watch as we get far down the season. A lot more stuff's probably going to be basically talked about in the future, but we're going to be watching, see what happens to the 10 car, the 18 car, and all the other things around the silly season as well. So anyway, that is going to be it for the silly season update. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on page. So let's get over that and comment your thoughts on today's video on the silly season update. What are your expectations for the rest of the silly season? You think a lot of things that I speculate will happen heading into the 2023 season and going into 2024? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, more than likely, will be a NASCAR news video, catching up with some of the NASCAR news. And then this weekend, we've got some Cup racing, Xfinity Series racing from New Hampshire, and also the SRX race from my home track in I-55 Speedway. I don't believe I will be there. Unfortunately, I really want to be there, but I don't think I'm going to be there. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.